Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil and Nick Padone. I can't wait to get your guys' takes on the Super Bowl. What a weird time for us. I don't know, just like, first of all, what was your reaction?
To the Super Bowl overall?
Yeah, just overall.
Well, first of all, I feel vindicated because I've gone on these airwaves the last 2 weeks since the championship game, and I've said I cannot see Kansas City hanging with the Eagles. I see the Eagles winning. I didn't change my stance on that at all. I was unwavering, which is very, very different for me. Usually I'll go back and forth, but I just saw this straight as the Eagles have more talent than Kansas City. And assuming that the refs call it fairly, I thought that the Eagles were going to roll. And sure enough, they did. Won me a little bit of money, Nick. They're on the way. It was kind of nice. I went from, in my account, a couple of bucks. Then I went and rolled all through the college football playoff with the Buckeyes. Kind of earned it up there. Then I put that money, parlayed it on the Eagles. Now I'm up over $100 from $2 to over $100 in my little account there. Not too bad. Good championship season for me.
Yeah, I think mine might be the opposite, just because mine was all on the Chiefs, and I can't be too upset about it just because I've made so much money these last couple of years, including the regular season on the Chiefs. Like, that's kind of a good strategy. Just bet on the Chiefs every week. They're pretty good. But, Chris, you're right. You were unwavering, and man, was Philadelphia the better team. Offense, defense. I've never seen an Andy Reid-led team that outcoached, that outprepared. I mean, the Eagles were ready to go to win that Super Bowl from Jump Street, and they just like dominated the whole game. It wasn't even close ever.
He looked like a totally different player.
And that's what happens when you get heat on them. And not only did the Eagles get heat on them, they did it with only their front four. They didn't blitz. That's incredible. And they got after him all afternoon long, all evening long. And that's what you got to do against a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And we could do it with just in your base, going with the four, you still have everybody in coverage. So there was nothing Mahomes could do.
And it proves that if you build a good defense, the rest of it's a little bit easier. I mean, Jalen Hurts throughout this year, was anybody calling Jalen Hurts a top 5 quarterback? Maybe top 10 for sure, but top 5 as a quarterback that could lead you to a Super Bowl? I mean, we see how important that defense is, especially that defensive front, and we think that we've got the right guy in Cleveland with Jim Schwartz, and that's his whole philosophy and ideology, but minus Myles Garrett, it might be hard to get pressure on quarterbacks the same way that we saw the Chiefs under duress yesterday.
What a great story for Jalen Hurts, too. You go back to his days at Alabama, benched in the championship for Tua. And now you see 8 years later, second Super Bowl, gets a Super Bowl MVP, leads them to the promised land. That's a great story and really, just a magical season kind of for him and for the Eagles. And then to overcome Kansas City, which there were a lot of people. I still can't believe that they were favored by 1.5 going in. They had a lot of momentum at their back, despite the fact they'd kind of been winning at the margins all year long. You know, they pieced together a really nice season, a season as a Browns fan I would die to have, right? But they were doing it as the Chiefs. They were doing it kind of by hook or by crook, but they got there. And then at the end of the day, end up just laying an egg in the Super Bowl.
Just totally not what I expected. And then the other thing was I thought the halftime performance was going to be a little juicier from – what did you guys think of Kendrick's performance? And I like Kendrick.
I thought it was good. I actually enjoyed it. You know, he teased the diss track there with Drake there at the beginning. You thought he wouldn't come back to it. He comes back to it. I thought that was fun. And, you know, the better judge of this is my kids. And I asked them whether it was good. They said, yeah, Dad, that was awesome. So I will leave it to them as the experts, the subject matter experts on Kendrick Lamar. But I enjoyed it.
I like Kendrick, too. I thought he left a little meat on the bone, and maybe that's kind of, Gab, how you feel.
I was hoping he would just, like, bring out some extra people. Like, I like
SZA was awesome.
Yeah, I like Serena
Williams. That was pretty cool.
I think he just needed, because it's hard as a rapper to, like, you know, it could have been spicier, the whole thing, I think. But maybe that's not his vibe. I can appreciate him no matter what. But I think for the Super Bowl halftime, you want, like, some kind of crazy something or other. And I thought he was going to, like, bring out some heavy hitters that had something different than what he had.
So he's even got the chain that's got the A minor. I mean, the guy's got everything up there. He's got all the pieces if you're paying attention.
You have to give him props for all the swag. It's one of those things where if you watched it over again, there's little nuggets that you would have a higher appreciation for, like his little smile and his shout out, if you want to call it that, to Drake.
And I love beef, you know, so like I was glad to see like there's no greater beef all of last year, and for that to play out as publicly as it did, and then the exclamation point being the Super Bowl. Yeah, but I saw your tweet that your dad was waiting for Bruno Mars to come out, and I had a shared experience. I watched the Super Bowl with my parents, and obviously, like, you know, my dad's in his 60s. Like, Kendrick Lamar is not like, and that's nothing against my dad. It's just that's not his cup of tea. You know, that's not what he grew up listening to by any stretch. So I think for the Super Bowl, maybe next year, they got to get back to like something that's a little bit for everybody.
We're going back to Imagine Dragons next year, Coldplay. That's what we're going to be getting next year, I guarantee.
Because you had a lot of people like my dad watching that halftime show that were just confused. Like, he didn't get that the Not Like Us was a jab at Drake. Like, that completely was lost on him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Eagles.
He was throwing out like, how's Billy Joel not doing this? Like, you know, that's the kind of crowd that he was after. So
come out,
we got to find a happy
get everybody going.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. It could have used a little pizzazz, but I have a lot of respect for him, and I think that if you're looking at it objectively from his standpoint, nailed it.
Yeah.
Other news, we've got the Cavs trading for DeAndre Hunter. We can talk about, should the Cavs be doing anything at the trade deadline? Obviously, Myles Garrett and his little media tour continued. We can get your thoughts on that. Pitchers and catchers
Which,
reporting.
by the way, thank God that's over, right? Super Bowl week ended up being a referendum on the Cleveland Browns. I am glad that is done. Every single day there was more news about Myles being somewhere, Ward being somewhere. I am glad that Super Bowl is over. Now we're officially to the off season, so we could start the next chapter as Browns fans.
I understand. Well, let's take a short break. We'll get your thoughts on all of these Cleveland headlines when we come back. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We've got your Cleveland headlines brought to you by Fairway Ford.
Cleveland headlines brought to you by Fairway Ford. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in Ohio. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s and Super Duty trucks, and they won't be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Don't let a short drive to Canfield prevent you from saving literally thousands on your new truck. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, lowest pricing, and the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com.
All right, let's talk Cavs first. Since we did just trade for DeAndre Hunter, we gave up friend of show, Cruise in Cleveland, my very first guest, George Niang, Karis LeVert, 3 second-round picks, and 2 swaps. I think ultimately this is the right move, even though I hate to see a great locker room guy like George go. And obviously maybe some of us, mostly me, are a little biased because I enjoyed his energy.
So it's kind of funny. This Sunday of last week, right before the trade deadline, I happened to be in a section, thank you, Rafa, where Kobe Altman was down on the floor. And George Niang came over and said, hey, am I getting traded? And Kobe said, nobody wants you. And we all kind of got a big laugh out of that. And certainly Kobe did indeed trade him and actually made a huge trade here. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm excited about getting Hunter in here to see him actually play with the Cavs, see how he mixes with the chemistry of the existing, core 4 here in Cleveland and really what we've put together. I hate to lose a guy like Niang. He was a lot of fun while he was here. We gave him a hard time. He was a bit inconsistent, sure, but he was also a lot of fun. You'd see him after the games with Tristan Thompson doing the post game. He was fun with us in here. Really enjoyed him. And then also Karis LeVert, another guy who was very inconsistent on the court, could be frustrating at times because I thought we had such high standards for him when he got here. You thought he might be a missing piece at one point. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a guy who's from the Columbus area, who's from Pickerington. So you hate losing kind of those hometown guys for me. But hopefully, Nick, this is going to be the piece that we need come playoffs to play against teams like Boston.
Yeah, a few thoughts on the losses, and then I'll have a thought on the gain. George Niang, no doubt, was a locker room favorite. Karis LeVert was a guy that, like you said, Chris, we thought, that was kind of the missing piece at a time, and it just never really panned out that way. Like, Cavalier fans will never have to again spin the Karis LeVert wheel, where every single night before the game, Karis LeVert spins a wheel and it determines which player will possess him for that night. And sometimes it's Anthony Bennett and sometimes it's Michael Jordan. We'll never have to live in that world of uncertainties ever again. And you make this move because you're trying to beat the Boston Celtics. That's the team to beat if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers in this Eastern Conference. And we just saw this past week, right before the trade deadline, George Niang had no chance on planet Earth of being able to defend these athletic wings like Jason Tatum, like Jaylen Brown. That just was not something that he has in his makeup physically. He cannot defend those guys. You get a guy like DeAndre Hunter in here, great length at 6'8", but not to mention this is a guy that's scoring 19 points per game off the bench for the Hawks. So very excited to see what he's going to bring to the Cavs.
We expect him to start here in Cleveland,
I think so,
right?
yeah.
Okay, because I've had those conversations with folks, and there are some people that think he's going to continue to be off the bench here like he was in Atlanta. I don't see that happening. I like Dean Wade coming off that bench. I think Ice coming off the bench. I really like what we can do with the bench with him in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is asking how it's going to affect the chemistry, because as we pointed out, George being such a huge locker room guy, and it seems a little like abstract to say until you're actually in the locker room. I know for me personally, I've been able to get credentialed for some games this season, and truthfully, he just like, it's crazy what one person can do to a locker room and set a tone and set a vibe. So I'll be really interested to see how DeAndre Hunter does, especially since actually here's a little chemistry. The fact that him and Ty Jerome went to Virginia.
Cavalier to Cavalier.
Yeah, Cavalier to Cavalier.
What a championship
and
there,
there might be some of that chemistry starting to form, and we'll see it play out on the court. So just another goodbye to George. We're going to miss the G-Wagon. We appreciate you, but looking forward to this next chapter.
And what's the best thing for team chemistry?
Winning.
That's right. We've been trying to chase chemistry with the Cleveland Browns for years. You know what would help? Winning. That's what the Cavs have right now. As long as that continues, I think team chemistry is also going to
People did the chemistry thing when they broke up Sexland. How could you break up the best friends of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland? And I think that pairing is doing okay.
Yeah, totally. Now, do you guys think that the Cavs did enough at the deadline to compete for this title?
I'd still like another big. I mean, in the buyout market, it would have been nice to have somebody. Every once in a while we have to trot Tristan out there, and it would be nice to have another option down there. But absent that, I'm not overly, throwing my hands up. I thought he did a nice job with who he brought in at the deadline. Like you said, with an eye on chemistry right now, but I'd still like to have somebody else, another body down there. It's a long NBA season. It'd be nice to have another big.
And they got an open roster spot, too. So Daniel Tice, Mo Bamba, a couple of free agent bigs that are out there. Come on down. You can spell Jared Allen and Evan Mobley for 8 minutes a night.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what happens. Myles Garrett, the media tour that continued. What were your thoughts on him really leaning into this?
Well, hopefully this is the end of it, right? He goes down, does his Super Bowl week, meets with all the media every day. There was some other story or some other angle on this coming out. Even saw David Njoku down there, shirtless. Hat tip to David Njoku being able to do that. I love that. But, I hope that's the end of this little media circuit, because you've seen the pendulum kind of swing back a little bit. There were people who were 100% behind Myles going into last week. And then he goes and he makes all of these appearances. And it's like, okay, Myles, we got it. You start to lose the fans a little bit. Now I think both sides just need to go silent, go into a room, figure it out, either trade him or sign him, one or the other.
I mean, he went on ESPN, an hour before the Super Bowl kicked off. Like, this is a guy that's about as dug in as you're going to find. And I think he made that abundantly clear throughout the entire week, starting on the Rich Eisen show. I mean, he was doing every nationally televised program in the country and really letting it sing that he is not aligned with what the Cleveland Browns' plans are when they had that meeting. So this seems to me like a guy that's very dug in, and I don't see a resolution here anytime soon. I get that the cap space, there's a lot of ramifications with that, but they said, what will it take for you to get traded? And Myles said he's willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, he went to the mat. He went to the absolute mat.
Yeah, ready to be done in Cleveland, and it stinks.
I guess I was surprised a little bit that the fans took it so personally. Even McNeil, some of your memes, I was like, well, he said what he said, and then he leaned right into it. He was a man of his behavior, supporting what he originally set out.
Very true.
So to me, I wasn't shocked at all, and I was kind of like, wow, this guy really means it. I mean, in a way, you got to respect that he really believes in himself and believes what he had to say. And he was saying that it's just not in alignment. I don't think
he's
really,
like us.
I don't
he
think
looks
he really
at the
went out there,
organization right now and says, I have no faith in you as an organization. Well, that's exactly what the fans have been saying. So it's hard to really put too much criticism on him. I think the hard part, though, is having him go on all those shows and just continually hammer that all week long. That gets to be a little bit much for the fans. But I think most of the fans are right there in the same boat with him, that like, hey, you guys as an organization need to figure this out. This is a mess, and even for the Cleveland Browns, this is one of the bigger messes that the Cleveland Browns have gotten into. So I don't blame him very much on that side at all.
Now, if Myles is traded, who do you think would be next?
I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. We have a long off season for all of these questions, but I think we're about at the lowest you can be. I mean, 1-31, 0-16. You look at those years, you had Myles Garrett coming in. You were thinking, hey, we're building towards something. You've got, new guys you're building. Right now, we're kind of keeping the same infrastructure as we had before and saying, hey, we're going to run it back. We're only a quarterback away. We're only one piece away. I don't believe that, Nick. I don't believe that we're just one piece away. I think we're much farther away. You look at teams like the Eagles, where I've been saying, hey, this is a complete team on paper. At the beginning of this season, we deluded ourselves into thinking the Cleveland Browns were a complete team on paper. Yeah. We're far from that.
I mean, right now they're staring at that age-old crossroads, and down one road you could believe that you're a quarterback away and you get that quarterback a couple complimentary pieces. And look what Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders were able to do.
They like to point out
in a rookie season. But then you look down the other path, and I understand that the other path is a much darker, it's a much more scary path. But it's getting out the scalpel, getting out the tools, and stripping this thing down to the studs and trading away Myles Garrett for the 2 first-round picks, shaking Denzel Ward's hand and said, you've been a tremendous, talent for the community, ambassador for Northeast Ohio as one of our own. You look at some of the older guys in the room, Nick Chubb, Joel Bitonio, and Teller, what are you going to tell these guys? Hey, good luck protecting this rookie quarterback that we're going to put back there, or, have fun winning 2 games with Abdul Carter as a rookie. Like, those are the 2 paths that the Browns currently face. And feels like in short order, we're going to find which path they're going to decide to go down.
Last thing, were you a little surprised to hear Njoku saying about stay home?
Which is ironic out of Njoku, who has had his own trade requests in the past, right? So maybe that gives him a little bit more credibility here that, like, hey, Myles, I've been there. I get it. But I'm telling you, we've got something here. I don't necessarily believe David Njoku, but I think he's doing yeoman's work there trying to keep Myles in Cleveland.
Yeah, I appreciated it. I'll say that. I appreciated the effort from David Njoku.
Yeah, what a time. Okay, guys, pitchers and catchers reporting this week.
Finally.
I can feel the sun and see it out today. It means that, we've got baseball around the corner. Are you going to spring training, Nick? What's the status?
I'm going down. I'm going down. I'll be in spring. I'll be there. I'll be boots on ground in Arizona. How about that? Okay, I'll be eating some tacos chihuas.
I was going to say, if you are, you better hit up tacos chihuas or, we're going to have problems and you're going to have to FaceTime me and everything.
Okay, I will. Maybe we'll record the FaceTime for this show.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I'm not going out, Chris. How about you?
No, I won't be going out.
I've
never been to a spring training. I would love to. It's definitely on my bucket list to do someday. Like, you guys have made it out there and talk about these great tacos and hanging out with the players, playing golf, all that fun stuff. No, I've been back here in Northeast Ohio working. But I am excited. I'll tell you what, you start passing through all these different guideposts as you get to the spring, and this is one of those. Pitchers and catchers reporting, first workouts, into the first games, starts building excitement for this baseball season.
Yep. Spring training, Shamrock Shakes being back. My vibes are starting to grow.
Yeah, this is your season, baby.
You had the Phoenix Open. Now we're looking ahead to the Masters. You've got the NCAA tournament
March Madness. I'm dusting off my bracket, getting John Fanta's phone number pulled up in the old phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's early, but what do you think that the Guardians are going to be in the AL Central this year?
competitive. Let me give
like
you that.
That's a good
How
word.
about that? Better than the White Sox? I don't know. Just like every single year, I come in with a lot of trepidation because we don't make a whole lot of offseason moves, and once again, we really didn't, other than subtractions, unfortunately, with some of our key players. So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to take young guys. We're going to talk about it all season long, but I think those guys coming up and down from Columbus this year are going to end up being a big part of this team going forward, and then we'll see. It's going to be those guys playing out over their skis. If it happens again, this is going to be a good team. If it doesn't, well, it could be a long season.
Big thanks again to our friends at Fairway Ford. Be sure to check them out at fairwayfordohio.com. You'll be glad you did. We'll take a break and we'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this.
Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show, live here from the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, 25th Annual Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. What a tremendous night that they put on for us here. We're lucky to be joined by the host of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Wow, easy for me to say, Mr. Jay Crawford.
How are you guys?
What's
Good?
going on?
Man, what an inspiring night.
Yeah.
Josiah, I know you guys just talked to him.
Yep.
I feel like I could lift a van by myself right now after talking to that kid.
Yeah.
I told him earlier this evening, I said, listen, every single night that I've been here, every year, this is the part of the show that always leaves me with a tear in my eye. And I told him, I know your story. When I see it all put together, that's probably going to happen again tonight. I just want to let you know that it's dusty inside the arena, and so it's not my emotions coming out, that it's just my allergies acting up.
Yeah.
What a story. Yeah. What an incredible story.
So let's talk a little bit about the Cavs. What do you think about the trade
I love the trade. We needed a stretch forward. We got him.
Yeah.
I hate the price, but, you know, if you're looking specifically for one piece to put you over the top, my thought is this is the guy. This is the piece.
Yep.
So, obviously, to get something, you have to give something up. The picks suck. I hate to give them up. What George means to the locker room, you can't put a price tag on. Yeah. That's my biggest fear. So what kind of recoil will the rest of the team have when they come to work and they look around and Karras is gone and George is gone? But I think they're grown men. They're professionals. I think they had a pretty good idea this was coming. So I love the move. I think that this gives them definitively the second best starting five in the NBA. So that's all you can ask for. It's clear Boston's still Boston. They proved it the other night.
And that's what drives this move, is you want to be able to beat Boston.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. This is strictly about getting past Boston. And I think we have a better chance today than we did yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. You know, not every day you find a 19-point-per-game guy off the bench that you could, throw a couple of your bench guys out for and, insert a starting small forward, which we haven't had since LeBron James left.
We haven't. And the other key part of this is it gets a little into the weeds, but from a salary cap perspective alone, it keeps you under the apron, and you're not going to be a repeat offender. It stops the clock for a little bit, which I think is very, very important because we have a window here. Mm-hmm. This isn't a sliver of a window. We have a window that could be open for 3 or maybe 4 years. So I think this is a move they had to do. I give all the credit in the world to Kobe and his team. It's incredible the foresight that they've used in putting this team together. It's like every move they make is, if you don't love it in the moment, it plays out to be perfect. So I think this team is extremely well positioned to compete for a championship this year, but also, most importantly, for a number of years, which is critical.
On the opposite side of the ledger, we have the Cleveland Browns. News comes out this week. Myles Garrett may be asking for a trade, writes the letter. What are your thoughts? You talk about the Cavs, everything turns to gold. With the Browns, everything turns the opposate way.
You could say it. Everything turns to I don't know if we can say it.
It's the internet.
It's brown. Here's the beauty of this. They don't have to trade him.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. Right. I wouldn't trade him. And I think Myles overplayed his hand.
Doing Radio Row today.
Yeah, and as a guy that's a bad look.
Bad look, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
What are you doing? What are you doing? And I love Myles. I'll be very upfront on this. I love Myles. I love everything he's meant for Cleveland. I think he's one of one, and he may go down as the greatest ever. And by the way, that's very important to Myles.
Yeah.
Did he win the NFL DOP?
I think they're like, it's like
any
going
moment
on.
now.
And then,
I haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
If he does it, it puts him in very, very, very rare air.
Yeah.
This is what I would say about Myles. To Myles. Myles, what you're fighting, I know what you're fighting for is a World Series. I get a Super Bowl. You don't want to be the defensive Joe Thomas.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with Joe Thomas.
Yep.
But the obvious mark on his career is he played for horrible teams for the entire time of his career.
Wasn't in the playoffs.
You don't want to be that.
Yep.
And so. And it's also very important. Personal awards are very important to him. He's never run from that. He said at the start of last year, I want to be the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
So he's never shied away from that. So you can bet your last dollar that being labeled the greatest ever to play edge rusher in the NFL, which is very much within his grasp, is on his radar. Are you going to get there if you take a 2-year hiatus from your career? He can't sit out.
No way.
So he has no leverage.
And come back at 31?
No,
like, no
you
way.
can't. You can't. I call it. You can't Bob Feller this. Bob Feller on December 8th, 1941, went down to the recruiting station in Iowa and said, I'm enlisting.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for my country. And 2.5 years later, he came back and picked up exactly where he left off. You can't do that at Myles' age, at his position. You sit out for a year or 2 years, you're forgotten quickly.
And we just saw that happen in real time.
We did see that happen in real time.
With the guy here at a very important position.
100%. So I think that stuff's important to Myles. He does not have a hammer here. The hammer is in the hands of the Cleveland Browns. And they've been pretty clear, from my understanding, inside the organization, we're not going to deal them. We're going to dig in and we're not going to deal them. And if that's the approach they want to take, I don't know that Myles has any choice but to show up in July and reboot this thing.
Off-season.
Oh, yeah.
It is. You're right. It's going to make for a very long off-season. I hope
a lot of content, though, which is good for me.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love the content. So, Myles, thank you. Keep it coming. But I can do without the drama. All I want in my lifetime is to see either the Guardians or the Browns win it all.
Yeah.
I have a really weird distinction. From your lips to God's ears. I've lost that optimism. I'm 59. I'm running out of years, bro. Here's what I have a really weird distinction. I don't know how many people in the media actually can say this. I have covered every single World Series game that the Indians have played in my lifetime.
Okay.
I was working in Columbus, Ohio, and I was at every game in 95. I was at all 7 in 97, and I was at all 7 in 16 when I was working for ESPN. I don't think I've ever had a more emotional night or emotional swings like Game 7 of 2016. I died that night a million times. It was incredible that night. I'm running out of years, and the Dodgers they don't care about it. They're the most improved team, and they were already the best team. So I don't know. I don't know that it's going to happen, and there's no indication that the Browns are close.
No.
So, God, please don't take me before one of those happen.
Maybe another Cavs?
Listen, it could be this year. It could be this year. Why not? Let's top it off with another one.
Yeah, leave out on an optimistic note.
That's
it could
right.
be our Cleveland Cavaliers.
That's right.
Huge thanks to Jay Crawford
Absolutely, guys.
for stopping by with us here at the Big Play Sports Network. We'll be right back. Huge thanks to Jay Crawford for popping on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Had a great time catching up with him and some other legends. They're at the 25th Annual Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. So stay tuned to the Big Play Cleveland Show. Download that Big Play Sports Network app and keep involved with all the great interviews that Chris and I were able to put together at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse that night. All right, guys. Well, it is time for a little bit of Fill in the Blank presented by our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. It's been freezing cold outside, and the sun is finally shining. We were talking about it. Spring training is here this week, and if you're like us, you've been cooped up in your house. You haven't done a lot throughout the winter, and you're probably looking around different rooms in your house, identifying projects. And if that's the state that you're in right now, make your first visit Northeast Factory Direct. They say in life, the only thing that we have is time. Our time is our most valuable asset. And I could think of no better way to use that time and save that time by visiting Alex and the team over at Northeast Factory Direct. They have everything that you need to build your dream kitchen from day one. Cabinets, hardware, countertops, flooring, top of the line appliances at about half the price. So you don't have to wait any longer. You would shop online anytime by going to NortheastFactoryDirect.com, but go visit them in person. Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, North Canton. If you're looking for an even better deal, you could check out their outlet center in Euclid or Canton. But when you're in there, ask about that big play bonus. Tell Northeast Factory Direct that you heard about them on Big Play, and you're going to get an extra special hookup. Now is the time. Go get some of those projects around the house done. Visit Northeast Factory Direct today.
And with that, we're going to get our Northeast Factory Direct fill-in-the-blank segment underway. Okay, in one word, last night's Super Bowl was?
Boring.
Yeah.
And I was on Twitter last night. There was a point where Super Bowl, the word Super Bowl was trending number 1. The word boring was trending number 2. I kid you not on that one. I thought from start to finish, although the team that I wanted and it ended up winning that ball game in the Philadelphia Eagles, I thought it was a pretty boring overall Super Bowl for me.
You know, I've had the opportunity and the pleasure in my young media career to do a lot of Super Bowl media weeks. And when you're at Super Bowl media week, you know, you rub elbows with a lot of people who, you know, you probably follow on Twitter, you have connections with in the football community, but not people that you talk to every day. And you do the awkward, cringy, like at events and at parties, small talk conversations. Yep. And the one thing that always comes up that kind of is like the wrap up on your conversation is, I just hope it's a good game. Yeah. You know, that's the one thing that everybody down there is pulling for, is for the Super Bowl to be a good game. And it fell completely flat of that in Super Bowl 59. And kind of what felt like a down year for the NFL, as somebody that's maybe a little bit biased as a Cleveland Browns fan. You know, a lot of the nationally televised games and the big matchups didn't live up to the hype. Fitting in to kind of a down year for the NFL to have a bit of a snoozer Super Bowl. And on to the NBA playoffs and baseball season, guys. I'm ready for it.
I feel that. How about my favorite Super Bowl commercial was?
Ours.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the Big Play Super Bowl commercial. We crushed it.
Besides the Big Play one, because we did crush it.
Yeah, I kind of like the pickleball one with William Dafoe, Catherine O'Hara. I thought that one was pretty well done. I'll also give a shout out. I don't know if anybody saw the Doritos commercial, the one with the alien abduction.
The UFO? Yeah.
The UFO one. So that was actually a winner from Ohio who produced that. The guy who wrote it, his name is Dylan Bradshaw. He's from Dublin, Ohio. Now lives out in L.A., but he's the one who came up with the concept for that and ended up winning out of multiple entries across the country, ended up getting his in. Apparently, he's a big fan of movies and of abduction movies and that sort of thing, so that gave him the idea. So shout out to you, Dylan. Way to go on that commercial. I like that Doritos.
And there was a memorable one. You know, that's what you're after for Super Bowl commercials, is something that's going to stick with people. And you see so many of them and you get like a quick chuckle and then just, you know, the commercials run on. That's one thing about commercials. But yeah, the Dorito one, I definitely stopped. So cool to know that was an Ohio guy put that together.
I like the one with Tom Brady and he was like powered down and he needed batteries, because it's kind of like self-deprecating, and then also the cherry on top with making fun of himself for the roast.
Yeah. And that Gronk was that at the end of it, Gronk was out of battery, so they had to go downstairs.
Yeah. I like that one.
That was good.
And we already went over this, but in one word, the Super Bowl halftime show was
kind of divisive. I'll tell you what, you got people on both sides of that thing. People who liked it and kind of got what he was doing out there, and a lot of people today who were totally against it, didn't get it, and so that's why you're going to end up with Imagine Dragons next year.
Okay, I don't have one word for it, but yeah, this Super Bowl halftime was not going to happen next year. You know, like they're going to do something a bit safer next year, I feel like. You know,
Lee Greenwood is what you're going to get next year.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like they got to throw in a rapper here and there. Like,
they do.
We should. You know, he should be recognized. And honestly, Kendrick cleaned up at the Grammys. Like, this was his year. This was a good time for him. It's just that, like, to do it every year, it's kind of a little bit of a, like, lower energy type of thing, because it's a different genre and vibe. So I agree. They'll probably rebound, get a little higher energy for next year.
Yeah.
I like the Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam in there, too.
Yeah,
kind of introducing each song.
Nice
and that was a nice touch. Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this.
Welcome to Big Play, the fastest growing sports media company in America.
I'm gonna keep it straight with you. The reason you should watch our show is because I look good, baby. Come get some!
Join our millions of fans for live sports talk shows hosted by the top former athletes and sports personalities in the industry.
Ohio, it's my home state.
Obviously, I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan.
Watch what you want, where you want, when you want. Welcome to Big Play.
Make sure you tune in.
I love you, Cleveland.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. All right, boys, now that the NFL season is officially over, the one move the Browns have to make this offseason is...
In this league, you're not going anywhere without a QB. You have to make the decision whether that QB is in this draft or in free agency. If it is, you got to go get that person. If not, you're going to be punting on this season and figuring out something down the line. So they have to make a decision at that quarterback position.
Yeah, find the quarterback. I mean, we heard on NFL Network throughout all the Myles Garrett mania that was Super Bowl Media Week, you know, the one thing that kind of came out of it was the Browns had plans to draft a quarterback even before Deshaun Watson's Achilles injury happened. So that tells you that this is a quarterback class, and we've heard all of the critiques about it, but a quarterback class that the Cleveland Browns are a little bit more familiar with than what you might have been led on to believe initially.
They've been doing their homework.
They've been doing their homework. And maybe they find a guy in free agency as well, whether it be Kirk Cousins if he's released, and we're kind of expecting that to happen, or a guy like Daniel Jones were the two names that were mentioned. But better believe the Browns have to find an answer at quarterback, because currently your option is Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Deshaun Watson, who's not going to be able to play because his Achilles is in half again. So they got to find something.
So the other news last week, Aaron Rodgers done with the Jets. Any interest in Aaron Rodgers, Nick?
I put out there on social media, you know, I don't know if I'm interested in Aaron Rodgers on the football field, but the Browns do have the opportunity to give us the most entertaining position group in league history by signing Aaron Rodgers in free agency, drafting Shedeur Sanders with the number 2 overall pick, and then you've got Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson kind of as the third QB, and one's going to be on the PUP list throughout the entire season. So Browns have the opportunity to do the most entertaining and funny thing imaginable.
If you do that, you got to find enough cap space to also get Jameis Winston in there, just to make it the most unbelievable quarterback room of all time.
Yeah, it would be
please.
something.
I miss him already. Okay, Cavs, guys. We've got 3 All-Stars this year, plus Kenny Atkinson being a coach.
Yeah.
How about the fill-in-the-blank continues? Darius Garland participating in the three-point contest is
a fitting reward for him.
Agreed.
Finally, he's getting recognized, you know, league-wide. We've known for a while what we've got here in Darius Garland. He's somebody who we've seen progress over the years, and it's nice to see him finally making the All-Star game and now finally getting on that stage. The three-point contest singles you out as an individual, and this gives him a chance to get some of those individual accolades. So I'm happy to see a guy like Darius Garland. Plus, there's zero chance he's going to get hit in the face. So that's good outside of a normal game, because once he gets in that All-Star game, I guarantee nobody plays any defense. He's still getting hit in the face.
You know, I don't have any kids of my own, kind of obviously. I'm going to be pulling for Darius Garland in this three-point contest. What I feel like would be, you know, like if I had a kid participating in it, because I stood by this guy, you know, through the bad rookie season. I stood by Darius Garland when everybody wanted to, you know, cast him off for dead because he was so bad in the playoffs last year after everything that he had been through the, you know, face injury and getting his jaw wired shut and losing all the weight. Like, he deserves this entire weekend, from being an actual NBA All-Star in the game on Sunday to hopefully winning this three-point competition on Saturday. I cannot wait to see DG the PG compete in this thing, and I hope he wins it.
DG the PG. I love it. Yeah, he's going against Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Tyler Harrow's in there. Dame Lillard is in there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Buddy Hield, Cam Johnson. I think DG's got a shot. Like, there's some good shooters in here, but outside of Brunson, Dame, I like DG.
Yeah, we like DG. How about the dunk contest? This year's field is
uninspiring once again.
Yeah.
Why don't they just replay an old dunk contest or something? There's nobody in this field. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see this guy throw it down. Throw on some old, like, Michael Jordan, Larry Nance back in the day. Give me those dunk contests. This one is just totally uninspiring.
How about Mac McClung out of the G League? They keep him on ice all throughout the year, and then this week they're like, he's currently unthawing. Like, they're unfreezing him, and they're gonna wheel him out like a circus animal to compete in this dunk contest. It's bad. I hope Mac McClung wins it, just because what a 2 weekend span that, you know, we could have as a white population of Cooper DeJean having a pick 6 as a DB in the Super Bowl and then having Mac McClung win the dunk contest. Like, we could be on a run here, guys.
Thanks again to our friends at Northeast Factory Direct. That's it for our Fill in the Blank segment. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this. Welcome back to Big Play Cleveland. It's time for our Would You Rather segment, and we're talking about George Niang once again. If you were George or Karis LeVert, would you rather the Cavs win the championship this season or struggle without you? This is like a question for Anderson Varejao.
The spite question here. How much spite do you have in your heart? I don't think that they will. Both of these guys, I think, are professionals. And like we talked about, the chemistry on this squad was really good with them, and I'm sure they wish them well. Although there's got to be a part of them as a professional at the top of your game where you say, man, I'm the guy who was the big difference there, you know, at the margins. So, you know, there's got to be that part of them, but I'm sure they really don't feel negatively about their teammates that they've left now.
Obviously, a lot of basketball to be played here, but if you peek at the Eastern Conference standings right now, the Hawks find themselves firmly in that play-in tournament, and if the Cavs are able to hold on to this 1 seed, we know 1 plays 8. Could it be Karis LeVert and George Niang against the Cleveland Cavaliers in round 1 of the NBA playoffs? Obviously, I don't think anybody locally or nationally would pick the Atlanta Hawks in that series. It would be the Cavs, but would be a cool storyline there. And I know Dollar Dog Nick has in this question, obviously we're wishing the best for them, but what would I want if I got traded? I'm a spiteful person. I have hate in my heart. I would be hoping that the Cavs finish this season without winning a singular game after trading me off to Atlanta. But seriously, for them, I mean, they get into some nicer weather sooner. You know, right now in Atlanta, it's about 50 degrees. That I'd take that over what we've got in Cleveland, and some phenomenal eats. I mean, you talk about like the Atlanta chicken scene is just unbelievable, top notch, one of one, you know, at least in terms of cities that I've ever visited. So there are some wins about being shipped off to Atlanta for sure.
It kind of reminds me of when LeBron left. There was a lot of time there where it's like, okay, if they're the 1 seed, the Cavs could kind of come in and maybe be the seed that plays them in the first round. Never happened, but I see those shades of that in this trade.
Yeah, this time it could happen.
The other thing is, okay, so I'm looking up Andy Varejao. So, Chris, I know you were flickering the other night because you weren't sure if obviously he got traded during 2016, but he wasn't
on the team, although I congratulated him on that championship last year at the Sports Awards.
I think the players who are there for the first half are still take enough credit because he was offered a championship ring by the Cavs.
If the Cavs win a ring,
Yeah, he just happened to decline it. So, I mean, to the question's point, I mean, hey, maybe George might have seen it written in the stars that he wasn't going to be around all season, hence maybe asking Kobe Altman, hey, am I getting traded? But if he can walk out with a ring at the end of this season regardless
that's what we're all looking for.
Helped.
We hope those guys at least get the opportunity to get a ring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would you rather the Browns be owned by Jimmy Haslam, Dan Gilbert, or Paul Dolan?
Dan Gilbert. I don't think there's any doubt about that one. He's willing to spend money. He's willing to get talent. He's shown that he can develop his organization. He's shown he can develop individual players. I think very highly of Dan Gilbert and what he's done in this town. I can't speak the same for Jimmy Haslam. And, of course, the Dolans. It's the old school criticism that we always levy upon them. They don't spending money. They don't go out and get the free agents.
And it's just so tough because, like, the Browns are the team, you know, that we would have Gilbert buy here. And, like, Haslam spends the money. He does. Like, you know, they are consistently spending a lot of money, but he's, you know, what Dan Gilbert has been able to do and bringing the championships here and righting the wrong with LeBron James, I think is a big part of Dan Gilbert's legacy. You know, they hated each other. They were bitter enemies there when LeBron made the decision.
Written in Comic Sans from Dan Gilbert.
But how quickly, you know, 3 years, 4 years, he was able to mend that relationship. And that's a lesson in life. That's a lesson in business. That's a lesson in sports, you know, that not everything, you know, it can be, you know, that was unraveled or undone. Everything could could be forgiven, and they were able to forgive each other and ultimately won a championship for the city. So yeah, I'd have Dan by the Browns.
And I think that's really cool. And I know we're fresh off of the Cleveland Sports Awards where he got the Lifetime Achievement Award. But I think it also, to your point, Nick, is really cool to see that type of leadership, because if you're able to mend that relationship against the greatest stars, one of the greatest to play the game, especially in our time right now, and be able to mend that and have him come back and win us a championship, it speaks a lot to that kind of leadership and taking accountability and being able to say, my bad, or, just make things right. And I think a lot of people are hoping for that type of leadership with the Browns. If your favorite team was in a championship game, would you rather they get blown out or lose a last-second heartbreaker? I feel like we ask this all the time every year.
I would like the opportunity with the Cleveland Browns to experience it either way. I'll tell you what, let's get to a championship game and let's find out how it goes. I guess I'd rather lose in a heartbreaking fashion, because at least then you had a team that was very close and you're hoping the next year you can come back. It doesn't always work that way. See the Buffalo Bills for years and years. But that would be the logical thinking that's the path I'd go down.
I completely agree. I would love to one day find out. It's tough every Super Bowl that goes past, and to think throughout history, thankfully I've only ever seen 26 of these, but to think throughout history, there are a lot of people that have gone even longer without seeing the Browns in one, and I would love, if nothing more than if they could get this figured out in short order.
There is something to be said with ripping the Band-Aid off. Kansas City yesterday, midway through the first quarter, you're like, okay, we're done here. This is it. Watch some commercials, because the football's not going to be very good for us the rest of the way.
How about this now, Chris? Is this a sign? Maybe, the Deshaun Watson thing and everything that we complain about Browns football, maybe it now could all be behind us. Maybe it never mattered in the first place, because the Chiefs dominated that entire run anyways, from 0-16 through where we're at presently. Maybe none of it mattered, and now we're ready for a fresh start.
That's right. There's going to be a new king to take up the throne, and it's going to be your Cleveland Browns.
Shedeur Sanders, baby. He's coming.
Ahead. Thanks for watching the Big Play Cleveland Show. We'll be back next week.